Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? My name is Denonu, the man with the biggest and the most blackest privilege on YouTube. And this is going to be part 2 of my Avengers Infinity War review here. And I didn't know how I was going to do this. Like I said, I plan to go in depth with a lot of these, or with the whole of review in general, containing all of these parts. And I didn't know if I was going to do it by character, by scene, or an overview of how the story was, things like that. But I think I've decided to do it pretty much just like how they did in the movie. And I'm going to probably break it up by, I guess, by team, you know, in fighting game terms. We're going to get Iron Man's team out the way, then work on Captain America's team, and then work on the Guardians and things like that. And, well, Guardians and Thor, I guess you could say. And we're going to break it up like that, and then we're going to get into the character-specific stuff like Thanos, the Black Order, and maybe not everybody, because there is a lot of characters in this movie. And it would be, I mean, I could make parts about all of that stuff, but that's a lot of stuff. And if you guys have been keeping up with the MCU, you already know where all of the regular characters are. So I'm just going to talk about some of the new characters and things like that. And then, I mean, I guess if you guys want me to do more, I can, I always can. It's no big deal. But Team Iron Man here. The movie started out strong. I was kind of hoping that they were going to show Thanos get the Power Stone first, since that's the one that was on Xandar, and that's like the first one he had in the movie. So I figured they were going to show him like wreck Xandar, even if it was like in a quick 5-minute shot, or show like an ending scene of like somebody calling out on the radio or something saying, hey, look, we're under attack, something, and then just show Thanos leaving, something like that, right? But we didn't get none of that. Instead, this movie picks up right where Thor Ragnarok left off, and Thanos has already wrecked the Asgardians. He already has Thor hemmed up. He wrecked Heimdall, Loki, standing there. They are, the fight already took place. Thanos already boarded the ship and everything like that with the Black Order. And I want to say, I think Loki talks to Thanos first, and then he pulls out that line, "We have a Hulk," just like Iron Man said to him back in Avengers 1. And Hulk jumps up, YouTube, and let's just say he wasn't at that World War Hulk phase in his life. And he got that ass handed to him. And Thanos kind of, I don't know if he was using the Infinity Gauntlet when he did, but my impression of it when I was watching it is that he wasn't using it. He was just whipping his ass. Only because every time he was using the gauntlet through the movie, every time, just like in a comic book, every time you use one of the stones, whichever one you're using, that's the one that kind of glows when it's being used. And in this scene, Thanos was just out punching the Incredible Hulk. It was kind of like watching, if you have a brawler or a street fighter, somebody who, let's say, wasn't formally trained, having them fight somebody who was formally trained. And a lot of times, the street fighter or the brawler can win because they have heart. But this was what's that Rocky movie where he fought the Russian dude, and Russian dude, no, scratch that, let me not say that. This was like when the Russian and Rocky fought Apollo Creed, and he killed him. That's pretty much what this was. Hulk was trying to swing on Thanos, and Thanos was just like tactically planning his blows and doing stuff against the Incredible Hulk to where it put him down in like less than like 2 minutes. And Hulk, I think he didn't transform into Banner, but before they could actually kill Hulk, Heimdall kind of sends him, or I didn't even know Heimdall could do this, but he activates the Bifrost teleport thing again. I can't call it the Bifrost because it's not the Bifrost, because the Bifrost was destroyed, but it's he teleported him down to Earth, and he landed in Doctor Strange's house. That scene was ripped from the original story, except in place of the Incredible Hulk, it was Silver Surfer who got the business, so to speak. And then from there, he basically explains everything to Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is like, who in the hell are you? Because I don't know who you are. And he basically calls Tony Stark. Well, not calls Tony Stark, but he mentions him. So what Doctor Strange does is teleports to Tony Stark. Stark and Pepper are chilling in the park, and basically they get him on board the team. They bring him back to the spot. They explain him what's going on, things like that. And before they can initiate a plan to deal with Thanos, or even try to deal with him, to build some kind of defense, things pop off in New York City. And that's the that trailer scene where you see the big Stargate looking machine in New York, and you see Spider-Man climb out the bus and whip swing away. That's what this scene is. And this movie did not go how I thought it was going to go. I thought that they were gonna, like, this was gonna be like the first invasion, I guess you could say, on Earth of Thanos and the Black Order, because I thought that scene where Thanos knocked out Iron Man in the trailer, I thought that was in New York, based on how some of the lighting was. But that was on Titan towards the end of the movie. And I thought that scene of Thanos coming out of the portal and everything in the trailer was going to be in New York, and that's where everybody was going to first see him. But that was not the case. During the whole New York scene, it was basically Ebony Maw attacking Doctor Strange and Iron Man and things like that, wanting to know where the stones were, things like that. I think they were looking for Vision at the time, because I think Ebony Maw was in New York with them, while Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive was hunting after Wanda and Vision. I think it was in Scotland, I believe, that they said they was in. And so Ebony Maw was attacking them and things like that, and they were just getting their asses handed to him for the most part. Iron Man would come in there for a little bit, but he couldn't really do anything. It was also, what was his name? I think his name in the comic book was, what was his name? Black Dwarf? The big muscle-bound Black Order guy. I forget what his name is, but I know in the movie they called him Cull Obsidian, I think his name was. But I think in the comic book his name was Black Dwarf. I don't know why they changed his name. Maybe because Black Dwarf, maybe they didn't want to call him Black and have people be like, oh, why he got to be big and black and things like that. So maybe they didn't want that, so maybe that's why they just changed it. But the scene in New York was pretty funny. You had a couple things here and there. I think the Ebony Maw, he was visually distinctive. I love the way he looked. He was pretty much beat for beat how he looked in the comics. I can't really complain about that. And they had a very interesting fight. He was like using telekinesis mostly against Iron Man and everybody like that. And I think he was trying to get Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange had a time stone, and that's what he was after. So he was trying to go after Doctor Strange. I forget, something happened to Doctor Strange. He got knocked out or something, and the cloak of levitation, was flying away from Ebony Maw, trying to get away from him. And at the end of the day, they captured him and was taking aboard that ring ship or whatever. I thought that was going to be like a Stargate portal like thing that allowed them to just basically just jump to Earth anytime they want, but no, that was just a full-blown spaceship at this point. And so once they got Doctor Strange, they just took off and left. They didn't wait to get it off or anything like that, because Doctor Strange had put some kind of a magical spell or curse on the time stone, so you couldn't actually remove it from his neck. So what they were going to try to do was break him and then get him to release the spell, and then that's how they was going to get it. So they kidnapped him instead of just taking the stone. And Iron Man flew up onto the ship, got in there by himself. Spider-Man, while they were fighting in New York, before they even got on the ship, basically sensed it through his spider sense. I'm assuming that's what it was, because that's what it looks like. And he basically helped them out during the fight, tried to get Doctor Strange and everything. But basically he boarded the ship first, then Iron Man got there. When Iron Man got there, Spider-Man was basically dying of not having any air, because they were going into orbit. And so he fell off the ship, and Tony called the Iron Spider suit into him, or onto him, and I'm hit or miss on the design of it, because I was a fan of the design of the Iron Spider-Man suit in the comic books, which is pretty much just like Iron Man's colors. In this, they kind of sort of made it like Spider-Man colors, but it's similar, but it's more Spider-Man than, let's say, Iron Man. In the comic book, it's damn near Iron Man more than Spider-Man, except it has no rocket boots. I remember Spider-Man wanting rocket boots on it in the comic books, and Tony was like, "Nah, man, you ain't getting rocket boots." But did like how the design of it looked at the end of the day. You know, I didn't hate the design of it, but when he first got the suit, Tony Stark said, "Look, leave. I don't want you here. You're a kid. I mean, we're about to, get into some serious stuff." And he was trying to convince him to leave. And I think something happened where he pushed him off, or something happened where he fell off. But he eventually snuck his way back on. They both teamed up, saved Doctor Strange from Ebony Maw. They basically pulled the scene out of Aliens, where they just kind of blew a hole open in the side of the ship, and he got sucked out into space, and that's how he died. As far as the Black Order go, I know this is going to be in a video by itself. I'm not a fan of how they just killed them off, to be honest. The Black Order was the shit. Any one of them could have taken on the entire Avengers group, the main contingent of them, one by themselves. That's just how strong they are. They're not like Thanos strong in the comic books, but they are up there. They're like just under him as far as what they're capable of. And in this, they kind of, I would assume, since they nerfed the heroes so much in the movies, because nobody probably outside of Captain America is probably their comic book counterpart. Like, if you look at Thor in the comic books is a beast. He's godlike. He is, this whole movie could have been done and fought by Thor by himself. That's who Thor is in the comics. He's that one guy who likes to fight, who's like, okay, let's do this. You want to bring war? Let's go. He's that one-man army type character. Whereas in the movies and Thor, he just doesn't seem like he's on that level, nowhere near on that level. So maybe since they nerfed everybody else, maybe that's also why they nerfed the villains. And even Thanos is nowhere near like how he is in the comic books in this movie. But he's going to be in the next video. But Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man, they stowed away on this ship, and this ship was heading to Titan, where Thanos' homeworld used to be, I guess, or the remnants of it is. And on the way there, I want to say Star-Lord and who else was it? Was it just Star-Lord? I could have swore it was somebody else, but Star-Lord meets him on the ship. They get into a little scuffle because they don't know who each other is, and Star-Lord is like, "Where's Gamora? Where did you take her? You work for Thanos, yada yada yada." And then they figured out like, okay, well, we're all trying to stop Thanos. They land on Titan. After a while, they're trying to think of a plan to figure out how they're gonna beat Thanos, since they know that none of them are on that level of taking him out, especially with the gauntlet. So they're trying to think of a way to keep the time stone away from Thanos. And when doing so, they all kind of bump heads as far as how they want to go about doing it. Doctor Strange, he's like, "Look, we're not gonna give Thanos the time stone at all, because that's like his job is to keep it away from him, to be the protector of Earth, things like that." And Iron Man is like, "Look, if we have the time stone, we can at least fight him on his, he's coming to us to take the stone, so he's setting the stage of the combat." So Iron Man's thing was like, "Look, why don't we take the stone, use it against him, and then fight him, don't let him come to us, let's go to him, to put him off, off footing, take the combat advantage in their favor." That's what he wanted to do. Doctor Strange was on the other side, where he was like, "I don't want to do that because you're just giving him what he wants." And Star-Lord was like, let me just make a plan, because, he was just being a dick. But they eventually worked something out. So when Thanos actually gets there, they all kind of jump him. And it's mostly Doctor Strange and Star-Lord. They have a really cool looking fight. I'm not even going to lie. The fight was damn good. And then Iron Man will come in there, every once in a while. And they eventually, that's who the third character was, Spider-Man. So Spider-Man's in there too, right? And they're all fighting, you know, Thanos and everything. And they eventually get him and hold him down. I think Doctor Strange even used, I mean, they didn't call it in the comic book, not in the comic books, but in the movies. But I think he used the Crimson Bands of Sidorak, which is also pretty cool. And something else that always bugs me about, I can say even Thor and Doctor Strange. In the comic books, right, you have Thor. Anytime he like uses his lightning or hammer or something like that, right? If let's say he was fighting on Asgard and Ragnarok or something like that, he would be like, "For the glory of Asgard," and then throw down the lightning and stuff like that, right? Or Doctor Strange, you would see him do all the magical stuff and he'd be like, "By the Crimson Bands of Sidorak," and then that's when you would actually see the move come out and grab him. Or "By the Eye of Agamotto," or something. Like, they call out what they're doing, right? How come they don't do that in the movies? Like, that would be like a really cool moment to see like Doctor Strange do all the magical Spider-Man hand symbols that he does in the comics, throwing the magical gang signs, and then like see the magic come out. Like, why don't they just do that? It's like he just does it. Like it's just, like he reached that that level of wizardry where it's like, oh, I don't have to speak the incantations, I can just do it. I forget where I heard that from, but it's like a lot of fantasy movies and games and books, they always have like tiers of wizardry, where it's like when you're first starting out, you have to have a wand and you have to make the gestures and all that. Then you have to voice it, that's the next level. And then the third one, you could just mentally just do it. So maybe he's just on that third badass level and is just able to do it. But I just want to see him call out the names, YouTube. I mean, because that's like what he does in comics, so it's like, why not? But they hold him down. And Iron Man and Spider-Man, they're trying to get the gauntlet off, and the gauntlet is kind of like stuck on Thanos's, fist. It's not going nowhere. Mantis jumped on his back, and she's trying to, put him to sleep, and she basically can't drop him because his will is too strong. So she's I guess putting him in that phase of like where you're constantly going to sleep, like trying to put him to sleep, but he's still staying awake, so he's like in a trance. And while they're holding him down, trying to get the gauntlet off, because they're thinking like, all right, if we can get the gauntlet off, then we may have a chance of just whooping his ass and beating him, but with the gauntlet, I mean, it's damn near impossible. So while they're trying to do that, Star-Lord is pissed at Thanos because he finds out, or Gamora was kidnapped earlier in the movie. I'll get into that when I talk about the Guardian segment. But she was kidnapped by Thanos earlier in the movie, before he got to there, and he was like, where's Gamora? What did you do with her? Things like that. And Thanos says, I think he said like he killed her, or he had to destroy her, something like that. But basically, in order to get the Soul Stone, he had to throw her into something that looked like the Infinity Well from the comics. And basically, in order to get it, you had to give up the one thing in life that you truly, truly love. And to Thanos, the only thing he cared about like that was Gamora. So he had to kill her in order to get the stone. So when he tells that to Star-Lord, the hothead that he is, kind of flips out and just starts whooping on Thanos' head. He starts pistol whipping him with that binary rifle that he got, that elemental rifle. And that's something else I don't see in the movies either. That gun that Star-Lord has, and I'm sorry for just ranting all over the place, but it's just things that I pick out because I know the characters. That gun that Star-Lord has, it's like an elemental gun. Like it can shoot energy blasts and stuff like that, but I could have swore in the Guardians cartoon it could shoot fire, ice, water, energy, things like that. Like, that's what the gun did. It was like an elemental type thing. So you had like the 4 elements and energy in that gun whenever he shot, and he could choose whatever he wanted to do. Don't know why they don't do that in the movies, but so he starts taking that gun and wailing on Thanos, and Mantis is still kind of connected to him using her powers or her abilities, and she's feeling the pain of the blow, so she can't take it, so she lets go. And then right when she lets go, that's when like Iron Man and Spider-Man almost get the gauntlet off, and it's like it's just on like the tip of his fingers, right, the wrist part, and Thanos grabs it. He clenches his fist and throws everybody off and starts digging into him again. And he lays into all of them, knocks, everybody down. Iron Man's big moment comes in. He jumps in using his bleeding edge-esque armor, and he tries to take it to Thanos. I was kind of surprised how far he got in his fight, because normally in the comic books, Iron Man's not the guy to go up there and just punch Thanos in the face. Just saying. His suits are good. They're usually not that good. But I guess movie Iron Man is a whole lot stronger than comic book Iron Man when it comes to like fighting his weaker Thanos and everything. And so he puts in work a little bit, but at the end of the day, he gets stabbed in the gut with the piece of his armor blade that he made. He basically tried to stab Thanos by turning his arm into a blade and stabbing him. But Thanos dodged out the way, grabbed it with his fist, and broke it off, and then stabbed Tony Stark in the gut. So that laid him out. And he was about to kill Iron Man when Doctor Strange was like, "Hey, look, don't kill him, and I'll give you the Time Stone." So he gave him the stone, and basically, I want to say like he gave him the stone and he left. And Iron Man was like, "Oh, why'd you give him the stone?" I mean, because earlier in the movie, before they landed, Doctor Strange specifically said like 2 or 3 times, like, if it came down between you and the stone, I'm not giving him that stone. It was like, that was like his end all be all, where it's like, no matter what happens, the universe comes first before any one of us. So he wasn't gonna give it to him. So when he gave it to him, he was like, "Well, why'd you give him the stone?" And they don't try to hide the fact, because earlier, before Thanos got there, Doctor Strange had kind of looked into the future, and he saw like 14 million possibilities of trying to figure out which way that they could use in order to beat Thanos. And out of 14 million and plus ways of visions of the future, he saw only one way to beat him. And what I'm guessing is they didn't try to hide the fact, but that one way they had to beat him was, they basically had to, pull like a Raiden, what they did with Mortal Kombat, was it 10, where they just had to like let Thanos win. So he had to give him the Time Stone in order to, I guess, progress that one way. So at the end of the movie, when Thanos, pulls one of these and kills Doctor Strange, Star-Lord, Spider-Man, and everybody else that he kills, that's basically, like, I guess maybe in all those other 14 million ways, maybe Iron Man would have died, and let's say Iron Man was could be the linchpin to, like, if everybody else dies and not Tony Stark, maybe Tony Stark will be the one guy to think of something in the next movie to beat Thanos or do something like that. So it was definitely a calculated maneuver. I don't think he just willingly gave him the stone just to save Tony Stark because he didn't know him. They weren't friends in the slightest. So it could be that, like I said, I mean, that was the only way to progress their winning progress. They were, he was playing the long game rather than the short game. And it really left Tony Stark, I think at the end of the movie, he's on Titan by himself with a bunch of down ships and buildings and things like that. So he's like stuck on Titan. I don't know how he's gonna get back to Earth. Maybe Wong could pull one of these, sling ring things and go all the way to Titan, but I doubt it. Maybe somebody from Earth or the Guardians or whatever. Maybe Thor will use his magical Bifrost Stormbreaker hammer to Bifrost his way to Titan to get Tony Stark. But considering that nobody knows that they're there, it's gonna be one of those things where it's like, all right, well, where can they be? It left me kind of wondering, like, how was he gonna get back? He can't fly back with his suit. I mean, this isn't that Guardians armor that he had in the comics where he could just fly in space and just do that kind of sort of stuff. This is his regular, bleeding edge type suit. So I'm pretty sure he can fly in space a little bit, but his rocket power ain't getting him back all the way to Earth, way too far. So unless somebody can somehow sense where he is or bring him back some kind of way or know that he's on Titan, then I don't see how he's getting back to Earth. I mean, the only thing I could think of is either he uses his ingenuity to piece together all the technology that's left to somehow build a working ship, and then he has to pilot it back to Earth. And that was another thing that happened during the movie, is he didn't know how to pilot their ships. So he couldn't take the one that was on back to Earth, but before they got the Titan. So even if he was managed, to build a ship, again, he doesn't have his AI, because that's back on Earth with his company. So he has no AI, broken down ships, and piss poor technology left on the planet. His suit is kind of done, but I'm assuming he can self-repair that. Given nanotechnology, that's kind of like something that it does. I mean, it can always make more of itself. So his suit's going to be fine, but maybe somehow he could use that to put together a starship. I don't know. That seems like a reach. So I don't think that's going to be what they do. It could be that maybe when Captain Marvel, however she gets back, I'm assuming she's off in space dealing with the Kree and the Skrull War, because that's what her movie's going to be about. It's going to be the Skrulls and things like that. So maybe on her way back to Earth, maybe she, maybe he puts together enough of technology on Titan to make a distress call, and maybe when she's on her way back, she picks up the signal, picks him up on the way, they both get to Earth. Maybe that's how they do it. I don't know. But their side of the story was probably the most, I would say, hard-hitting emotionally, outside of Thanos and his part of the story, because he had the biggest part in the movie. It was definitely his movie, just like that interview with the Russo brothers said, like, the heroes are in it, but it's not their movie, it's Thanos' movie. So he had the most emotional thing. You understood where he was coming from. But Iron Man's team, they had the most hard-hitting moments, especially when it came towards the end, like Iron Man getting stabbed. I remember the crowd kind of getting shook on that. When Doctor Strange and especially when Spider-Man was turning into dust at the end, everybody got hit off of that. Like Tom Holland killed it. Because it's one thing where it's like when you can see it happen, right? But the one thing I guess that he's good at, and I've heard other people mention it too, is that he sells that performance of being a kid. Like, yeah, you're fighting and you're helping out all these heroes, but you forget that, like, he's like 15, 16 years old. So he's still a kid. And Iron Man is probably gonna feel like super guilty that he kind of brought him into, not necessarily superheroism, because he was already there doing that, but he kind of brought him into the the world of the adults, the A game, as it were, as he called it. He's gonna probably super regret that, because it got him killed, at the end of the day. And it's probably gonna be one of those things that's gonna be eating him in the next movie too, once they do the conclusion, because I believe that him or Cap has to go at the end of the next movie. So everybody's like, oh, it's gonna be Cap, and I guess I can picture that. But the one thing that that leads me to believe it's gonna be Iron Man. Maybe Cap goes out a different way, but I think the one that's gonna make the big sacrifice in the next one is gonna probably be Iron Man, and that's gonna probably get him killed, whatever it is, because he's the only one in the whole MCU that's had the biggest character change from movie to movie, and the whole thing, if you think about it, because it's been filled with a lot of mistakes that he's made that he's trying to correct for. That's like his biggest character arc. Ultron, bringing Spider-Man in, seeing him die. Iron Man 2 with his technology getting out there with other people using it. Iron Man 1, weapons dealing, things like that. So he has the biggest card to throw in there when it comes to, like, oh, I feel like I have to sacrifice myself, especially over Civil War 2, because like I said, outside of Ultron, him going for the Accords and everything and things like that, he looks probably at Steve and be like, okay, Steve is probably like the right person, I know Steve was right, at the end of the day, he probably, is gonna change his mind on that. So he's gonna do what Steve would do, which would be sacrifice himself, probably either to bring everybody back some kind of way. Still don't know how they're gonna figure out that one. But that's gonna go in my last video that I do in this series of videos. is I'm gonna start guessing and throwing out estimations as far as what I think they're gonna do for the second one. But I think something's gonna go down in the second movie, and Iron Man is gonna sacrifice himself to try to stop Thanos. I mean, if Thanos is gonna be that part, I mean, I'm guessing he's gonna still be in it, or to bring everybody back, or to do something. I think that's how he's gonna go. He's gonna sacrifice himself for everybody else. And I don't know, because everybody else, I don't see them doing really anything with. I mean, I know they're gonna come back. Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, everybody, they're all gonna come back because they, still got movies to make. But by Robert Downey Jr. and Steve Evans, by their contracts being up, and it's like the perfect time to just be like, you know what, we're not doing no more, and let Marvel recast like 5 or 6 years later down the line. This would be the perfect opportunity, to do that. So I think that's how he's gonna go out, and maybe Cap. I don't know. I think it's gonna be two separate things, but I know at the end of the day, either Cap's gonna retire and Iron Man's gonna, sacrifice himself, or maybe Cap's gonna sacrifice himself and maybe Iron Man's gonna stop doing what he does. I don't know. But anyway, that's just been my thoughts on Iron Man's team of things. Just to wrap things up, their fight scenes were damn good. They were probably the best in the movie, outside of Thor's scene when he comes in that Wakanda fight and just wrecks shop. Outside of that, this was probably the best part of the movie, to be honest. Them on Titan fighting everybody, and then the character interactions, they seemed to me like they had the best cohesive character interactions between like Iron Man and Star-Lord, and Doctor Strange and Iron Man, things like that. Maybe outside of Thor and Star-Lord at the Guardian ship, because that was funny, but we'll get to that when we talk about that Guardians video. But anyways, guys, that's just been my thoughts on Infinity War. Be on the lookout for the next part. I'm gonna try to keep these, I don't know if I'm gonna do them every day, because I can do them every day when I get off of work, so I don't know if I'm gonna release them every day or maybe like every other day, but we'll see when I upload this one. That's gonna determine if whether I do it tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. But anyways, guys, I'll see you guys later, and thanks for checking out my video. Peace out.